Hey Jackals, I'm Simon, and in today's DaVinci Resolve tutorial we will be using the Fusion page to make an effect that scales a video or an image down, puts it into one of the corners of the screen. You can then scale it up and scale it back down to one of the corners with the push of a button. Now let's get digital. So I have this lovely mess of a Fusion clip, so let's make a new Fusion composition. Right click in the media pool. If you don't have it open it up, right click, new Fusion composition. You can change the duration here if you want, give it a name, put it onto the timeline. You can also change the duration by extending it on the timeline and then go into the Fusion page. I'll simply use the clip that I've shown in the preview. Now this one is 1080p by default, but if it's not, what I like to do is make a background connected to the media in. Then switch the inputs, so the background is in the back, so it's connected to the yellow input of the merge node, and then go into the background and change the color, the alpha to 0, so that it's transparent. So if we move the video, we don't see the black color of the background. Now because I have this setup, I could go to the merge node and change the position of the clip and scale it up or down, but that's about it. What I want to do is scale the clip down, position it into one corner, and then scale the video back up from this position, which this does not achieve. So for that, we'll be using a transfer node. So again, we can use the center positions and the size, but this again does not achieve what I want, as you can see, but the transfer node does have the pivot. So I'll simply scale this down to maybe this size. Then I'll change the pivot point. In this case, I want it to be bottom left, so it is 0 and 0, just like that. And now if I change the size, as you can see, it scales from the bottom left corner, and that's exactly what I want. Now we could do the animation, maybe something like this with the size. We keyframe it again, and then it goes back down to something. And maybe we want to change the corner to top left, and in that case we want to increase the X value to 1. Now the pivot point is not animated, so I would have to animate it at this point. Then at this point it would be 0. So now we have this animation. It doesn't look the best because the pivot point changes from 0 to 1, but we wanted to actually snap to 1 at this point. So basically in one frame it changes the location. So now it scales up and then it will scale down to this top left corner. So that is how we'll do this, but we'll do it automatically. As for the pivot points, we'll have 0, 0 being bottom, 0, 1 being top, 1, 1 being top right, and let's see, 1, 0 being bottom right. So we need 4 points, and to get those easily, I'll use a custom tool, Control space or Shift space, custom tool. You don't need to connect it, you just need to have it. We have 4 points here, and you can disable the number ins under the config. So I've disabled the numbers, and now I'll input the points. You don't have to put them in as I do, but you need to have the same values if you want to position this into all 4 corners. So 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. So we have this done, and now we actually have to somehow connect these points to the transfer node. How we'll do that is we'll actually need to use an expression here, so I'll just simply type in equals. I'll go to the custom tool and pin it. And then in the transfer node you can now click on the plus and connect one of these points. Now this is point in 1, and this is the first point, which is 0, 0. If I connect it to the second one and delete this one, the image will jump to all of the other points that I can select. Now we know how this will work, but we need to do it automatically, because this is still not automatic. So I'll just remove the expression for now. And you actually don't need to do this with video or image. You can also do it with masks. So you can use a rectangle mask if you want. But in this case, you maybe want to adjust the width and the height to be maximum. And then you may also adjust the border width if you want to. And that would be for the overlay of the video. Now to make this automatic, I'll now paste in this piece of code, which I'll also link on my website in a blog post, but it won't be up immediately. I'll quickly go into the notepad so you can take a look at this piece of code, what it actually does. In this case, we have 2 corners, 3 and 4. I've used this one, and what it will do, it will look at the corner position. This is what we actually don't have at the moment. If this is equals to 0, 1, 2 and 3, then it will use these points. Now if the points don't match what we'll actually type here, you can simply go into the custom tool and change the point value. That would be the easiest one. Otherwise, we'll have a different solution. So now to link the custom tool points with the pivot points here, I'll actually make a custom control, and it's most sensible to do this in the transform node because we'll be using the pivot point in the transform node. So right click, go to edit controls. We can give it a name, and we should. Now this ID, the name, should be the same that you use here. So in this case, I'll use corner position. I'll select the control page here so that it puts it here. Otherwise it would make a user tab, and I don't need it. So I'll just put it to this one. And then what we want to select is combo control. Now I'm using DaVinci Resolve 18 version beta 3. So this has some issues, and we'll see that in a bit. So now I'll type in bottom left and I'll add it. Okay, that is strange. It added only 1 item, which is correct, but previously it added 3 items at once, which is not correct. So if that happens, that it adds more than 1 item, simply add all of the items that you need. Now I'll add bottom right, top left, top right. You can also change how this behaves. So I'll just leave this to horizontal and we can click OK. Now in case that the item list that you've added is multiplied, meaning it has more of the same options, in my case it doesn't, you would simply still press OK. Now this is selectable here as you can see, but you would then need to go back into the node, go to the edit controls, and the control that you've added, you can find it here, all the way down, corner position. You wouldn't make any changes and simply press OK, and that should fix the item list, so you only have 4 items. So now what we need to do is link these values, which we know what they mean, but the computer doesn't know. And this is actually what this code does. So the corner position, this is what we know what it does. So bottom left, the first item in the list is 0, and so on. So this is list item 0, 1, 2, and 3. So this is where the numbers come from, and this is the name of here, which is not the correct edges. So maybe we'll need to fix that. And how do you know what you have to fix? Well, you can simply make an expression. I'll copy this one for now. Connect the plus to here, and see it is corner position like I've given it the name. So we now have corner pos. Actually it's not pos test. I need to paste this one. So I'll copy and paste this piece of code, which is exactly the same as the bottom one. I've only changed the name because I've done the testing. So just like that. Now when you make the select change here, this should also change and move the video clip. So let's test it. Now it's bottom right, but it actually moved it to top left, which is not correct. So one way to fix this is to change the point value. In this case, if I want this to be bottom right, it should be 1 and 0. So this is one way how you can fix it. The other way is to go back into the edit controls, find the control that you've added, which is this one, select the one that you want and simply move it up or down. In this case, I'll just adjust the points to match what is in the text. And as you can also see, this doesn't work like I wanted because it only changes the first two values. So in this case, I'll go back into the transfer node and maybe add a couple of more controls and see if that fixes it. This one also has issues, which is really strange. Let me make a new transfer node and do the same steps. Actually, maybe the issue is that I have the same names in the same project, so that could be an issue. Top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. Now let's see if this will work for this one. It also doesn't, for some strange reason. Let me show you that it actually works in this example, because I've done the exact same thing. As you can see, I've also done some testing. This is how the vertical layout looks like. So I was able to change it here, but it gave me 4 of the exact same names when I've added one item to the list. And in this case, I wasn't able to switch, as you can see. And this one, I finally managed to get it to work. So I'll just leave you with this. As you can see, it should work, but maybe it doesn't because I'm using the beta version of DaVinci Resolve. So let's go back to the actual effect. So I'll be able to use the top left and top right in this case. So I should just change the name or change the value. So let me change the values in the custom tool. So if this is the top left, the x is 0 and y is 1. And if this is the top right, this should be 1, 1. So now this works as it should. So now if you want to make a macro and have the access to this in the edit page, so that you can simply change this with the push of a button and animate it, you would simply select all of the nodes, right click, make a macro, make sure that you also have the transfer node selected. You do need to have this one enabled, and you could simply save this as an effect if you want to put it onto the video clip, which is probably what you want, or you could also save it as a title if that's what you want, and even save it as a transition. So what you could do, for instance, is have some image here or a video, make this kind of a transition. This could also be a logo if you want so, and then scale it to another position and change the background video to something else. Now what you may also want to do, so you can take rectangle, I'll simply add some color to it, and you would want to go to the rectangle, change the width and the height, uncheck the solid, and adjust the border radius. So in this case, it may look okay, but when you adjust the width or the height, when you scale this down, so maybe you scale it down with the transfer node as well. So when you scale this down with the rectangle by adjusting the width or the height, which you may want to do, if you make this an ellipse, you will also have the border outside the selected range, which may not be what you want, especially at the top if you make this as an ellipse, because this is now cut off. So in that case, you would want to scale this ellipse down. It's not really an ellipse because you can get shapes like this. So you'd want to scale it to a point so that the border edge is inside the screen and not getting cut off like this. Now in this case, you could use, let's see, the position and the length for the animation. So let's say we animate the position. I like to use -1. I'll animate it and it will end at 1. The length will end at 1 and start at 0. So you get an animation like this. And what's good about this is that you also have the settings, so you can easily apply the motion blur, so you don't have to do it separately. You can also use an ellipse, but if you have video and you want to change the shapes, maybe you will want to use the rectangle instead of an ellipse, because the rectangle is more flexible. One way how you can also do this is to use shapes. You won't have this fusion bar, you'll have to add it on your own, and I also have a video on how to do that. So in this case, I'll use one rectangle node, I'll use as boolean, And I also need to use re-enter node if we actually want to see anything. So this is how it looks like. Maybe I want to adjust the width and the height. So the width can be set to 1, but the height cannot. So to do this with shapes, we'll be using an as-boolean. I'll copy this rectangle node. I'll paste an instance of it. And I'll de-instance the solid. Uncheck it. This will now be the border, and I also want to uncheck maybe the position and the length. So I can actually animate it. I'll also adjust the border width, so I'll de-instance that and adjust it so that we can see it. Now if I adjust the width, as you can see, it works exactly the same as it was in this example. So we also have the border outside, and that's what we want to cut with the as-boolean. So if I connect it like this, we get exactly what we want. So now I'll just adjust the width back to how it was. And if I go now into the instance node, which is the one with the border, I can adjust the length and do the same kind of an animation that I've done previously, except in this case I don't have the blur under the settings or the style. You have to go into the as-render node, which is the shape renderer, and you'll find it here. So you can get the same result, it just depends what you want and how you want to do it. Now this video wasn't flashy, but hopefully you got something out of it and you'll make some flashy effects. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more DaVinci Resolve and video editing content, and hit the bell notification icon so you know when my next video comes out. I'm Simon, and until next time jackals, keep it digital.